It has to be done through the policies, through the legal frameworks and the processes which need to be brought in. And that basically is what is known as a techno-legal regime when it comes to the practice of constructions. So techno-legal regime is not really a law per se. Law is a part of it. It's not really a process. Process is a part of it. It's not really people. People are a part of it. It's all of it together which forms a techno-legal regime. Now, who are the stakeholders who would be involved or who are involved in the techno-legal regime, both in the formulation and implementation? First of all, of course, is the central government. The state governments are there. The local governments and the PRIs going all the way up to the village level. They are all stakeholders in the techno-legal regime. Techno-legal regime for managing constructions, in case we are focused on safety, needs to overcome the mismatch shown in the right, that most of the resources are with the central government and at the level of the central government, while most of the responsibility are at the level of the local government or the local communities. So this causes a big mismatch. There is a lot of flow from top to bottom or bottom to top, but flow is not the same as being integrated. If we are going to have effective disaster risk management, it needs integration of both the triangles together. And the techno-legal regime is one of the mechanisms through which this integration can happen. And amongst the stakeholders, we also have the non-government stakeholders, the technical professionals, the skilled artisans, the unskilled workers, and so on. So techno-legal regime is basically this blue box, large blue box that I'm showing, which includes all of it. On the right-hand side at the bottom, we have the artisans and the unskilled workers whose numbers are the largest at the local level, and they pretty much go down to zero by the time they reach the central government. But they all need to work together within a framework. And if we look at the principal requirements of the techno-legal regime through this, first of all, it should regulate a variety of things. It should regulate people, it should regulate process, it should regulate products, the final outcome. It needs to delineate the responsibility of each stakeholder in a very legal way. It needs to be able to match the responsibility with the skills and resources available at that level. It needs to provide audit trail to monitor whether the responsibility is being implemented properly. And lastly, which is most important also, is that it needs to provide ambit for continuous improvement. We cannot say that, so I don't know how many of you know, but if you want to update, if a city wants to update its master plan, it's a 20-year long process. So the process is so exhausting and so intricate that once a master plan is prepared, for the next several decades, nobody would touch the master plan to make any improvement. That is a total antithesis to the ability to learn from new knowledge and ensure that you are able to take care of that to improve your safety as and when new knowledge becomes available. So in terms of our current status, we have indeed made really impressive progress to improve the techno-legal regime, particularly in terms of improvement in bylaws since the 2001 Gujarat earthquake. Most attention, unfortunately, has been on the process and also on the role of the technical professionals, but not so much on the role of the people in general and the role of the products or the insurance of the quality of the products. So the techno-legal regime needs to extend to address the other requirements. Focus has to shift to the quality of outcome from the implementation of process, and continuous improvement needs to be integrated. In terms of the problems which you keep on seeing again and again, compliance mechanism with whatever techno-legal regime we have right now is also not very well developed. We have very weak audit trail. After a fact, ability to find out where all the mistakes have happened are not well developed. Other than in the metro cities, the ability to implement these carefully is very limited. Just a couple of days ago, there was this collapse of a marriage hall in Rajasthan, which resulted in death of a large number of people who had come there. These are totally avoidable disasters which have a crippling effect on the local community. And these all happen because of the institutional weaknesses which are in place. So in terms of the way forward, I feel that we have done a lot, learned a lot over the last few decades, and we need to further build on the improvements. We need to update the bylaws with the latest knowledge. The Ministry of Urban Development last year came up with the Model Building Bylaws 2016, which is really an excellent document, and I feel that it can be taken and implemented almost in toto by most states. It's a very, very good step in the direction of improving one part of the techno-legal regime. There has to be a change in focus from compliance with process to ensuring quality. We need to better articulate the roles, particularly those of the government people, and we need to regulate the professionals and tradesmen in a better way. So to summarize, damage to buildings are the main cause of casualties during disasters, and most of the damage is due to poor building stock, not because of the disaster being unexpected. And improvement in techno-legal regime is essential if you want to reduce casualties. And there is a severe mismatch between the resources and responsibilities, and this inhibits the quality of construction. And lastly, techno-legal regime, because we have reached a particular level of development in the country as a whole, in our level of aspiration, so techno-legal regime as a whole requires fundamental changes from our current approach to meet the challenges in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think we can go up to 5:45 because we started late, so we have 10 minutes. Now the floor is open for observations, suggestions, comments, questions. We would like to take all the questions before I request my colleagues to respond in case it needs some response. Any question? Yes, I can see the two gentlemen at the back who raised their hands. So if you can quickly give them mic.
Sir, my name is Gupta. I am from Madhya Pradesh. I have a few observations to make. Like the road safety policy was mentioned by, I think, Mr. Rai. I suppose we need to learn something from the road safety issue also. Like if I talk about Madhya Pradesh road safety policy, we have made it mandatory that now the new roads which are coming up, there is a road safety audit concept has been introduced. So probably if we can bring in this, firstly we need to evolve the standards for maybe buildings, public buildings, roads, dams, etc. And if we can bring in something like disaster audit thing, so that is going to be very useful for us to just to avoid future losses. Then second thing is like the last Finance Commission, it raised the component of NDRF from 5% to 10%. But most of the time, it is not being used in the state because always the response always takes precedence. Like whenever there is a hailstorm or drought, there is hardly any money left for any resilience efforts or mitigation efforts. Then one more observation, like one of the MHA policy itself, MHA has decided to fund women crime investigative units in districts where it has said like it will be a team of 15 officers and it will be funded for 5 years and then the state governments will take it on. So can we bring in something like this for this disaster efforts also? Because this continuity of professional people working as a DM cadre, especially if not in the entire state, certain of the disaster-prone districts, if this concept can be introduced, probably many states would like to take it up. Thank you.
Thank you. So this side, yes.
Sir, I am AP Srivastava, civil engineer working with Indian Ordnance Factories. I have some questions from Professor Ravi. Sir, you just told about the codification of different provisions. In civil engineering, we see that there are multiple guidelines like National Building Codes, IS codes, CPWD specification, and again building laws, bylaws. So can there be a unification of all the codes so that we don't have to do multiple consultations? Secondly, sir, in Factories Act, we see that there is a provision of regular testing of structural stability of buildings. Every year we should check that. So I feel that there is no specific provision as to what kind of test is to be done. And every university, every professor is making his own way of doing testing. And there is no uniformity in the testing at various places. So can there be a dedicated code for structural stability test? And sir, my other question is from Shri Vyasji. Sir, I am also from Bihar. So there are certain disasters for which a big framework and big coordination is required. But in Bihar, there are some small factors which are affecting us in a big way. Like there was a stampede in Devghar temple, there was a stampede in Chhat Ghat, there was some overloading of boats. So if overloading and overcrowding, this can be identified as a potential disaster. So this problem can be addressed without any extra resources and coordination, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes. So you have the mic, you can speak, and after that he will get a chance. Yeah. From Tripura. Kindly give it to the gentleman there who's.
Thank you, sir. I am Sanjay Pant. I am Director and Head of Civil Engineering Department of BIS, Bureau of Indian Standards. It was a very interesting session. Subject really relates to us. I want to submit that the whole process of building regulatory system in the country and abroad everywhere involves main regulatory process and supplementary regulatory process. The main regulatory process is through the local building authorities as provided under 74th Constitutional Amendment Act. The supplementary regulatory process is through the professionals who are qualified and competent to do the job. And the supplementary process and the professionals which are involved, they can be regulated through the independent professional institutions or associations or statutory councils, or they can be regulated through the local body themselves or state level regulatory body. These frameworks are already in the country. These are well maintained. Only thing that to supplement the local building regulatory system, which is called techno-legal regime, we need to have technical documents because the legal document is already there. And therefore, we have the National Building Code of India 2016, the latest version, Concrete Code 1893, which is also 2016 latest version, Concrete Detailing, Steel Detailing, Reinforcement Detailing Code, which is also of latest 2016. And then we have the Construction Project Management Code involving time management, cost management, quality management, health and safety management, procurement management, risk management, communication management, integration management, sustainability management, all have been brought up. Then we also have the various material standards, including steel enforcement specification and cement standards, all revised in 2015-16. So latest are available. These are integrated in the local building regulatory bylaws. The question therefore remains that the local building bylaws or regulatory framework has to be implemented in a perfect better monitoring now, maybe 80%. They are beyond the framework of regulation. They are built by people themselves, by Rajmistri, without involving engineering inputs. So that is the issue. Now the issue basically apart.
You'll have to be brief because you'll have to immediately.
Session is this only.
No.
And then the issue is of orderly, safe, accessible and sustainable development. And the audits are enshrined in the regulatory system itself. So my submission is either the regulatory system should connect with an external audit or the internal audit in the building regulatory system should suffice. So we have to integrate these things. And then the issue is that the codes which are separately available are all integrated with the National Building Code. So whether you follow 1893 or NBC, it will mean the same. As far as CPWD standards are concerned, these are company standards which may also be followed by their sister companies like PWDs. This is true.
Okay, thank you. I think I will only allow 2 more questions because I'll give them chance. So first, yes, please ask.
Thank you, sir. This is Dr. Samir Deshkar from BNIT Nagpur. I have one question to Sushmar ji and then to Ravi sir. Sushmar ji, I would like to know, I completely agree with you when you said creating environments for conserving traditional knowledge systems is very important. I would like to know if there have been efforts for institutionalizing such traditional knowledge systems. I know a couple of them exist in the forested communities, but other than the forested communities, are there such efforts from the DRR point of view? Are there any examples in India or abroad? And my question to Dr. Ravi sir is that as many other members here also have pointed out, there are several codes, there are several guidelines which are in place, but still when it comes to holding the accountability, the engineers are running away, because we know that there is an engineers bill pending since 2003, wherein a structural audit and certification is a mandatory that the building is structurally safe and earthquake safe, but still that is not passed. So while we can have number of codes and guidelines and other things, but if there is no accountability as readiness, because you said regulating the professionals and the tradesmen. So what are the key challenges that you think in regulating these professions? Thank you.
Last question here. Yes, yeah, you can stand up and say. Kamal, I'm sorry, you'll have to.
Please take his question also, sir.
Please ask your question.
Sir, I'm Vyasji from Rajasthan, OSD Disaster Management. Sir, most of the points have been adequately covered by Dr. Vyasji. They were the questions, in fact, we were thinking of raising during this conference. It's again an observation. One of my colleagues raised the observation for HR support for 5 years for the states. In my case, I have requested it earlier also that there's so much of work being done by the NDMA and the national agencies, and we have been given so many guidelines, and so much of knowledge is being generated. We are not able to actually adopt the, rather implement the top-bottom approach. We are not able to disseminate everything to the lowest level, to the bottom. Hence, I request that the SDMAs of all the states, they should be strengthened in such a manner that they have all the kinds of experts, sectoral experts, and they take on the mandates of the NDMA, and subsequently after say about 2 to 3 years, we would be in a position to comply to all the guidelines. And I also request that all the states be funded for this initially, maybe for 3 crores, 4 crores, or 3 to 4 years, and then subsequently the states take on. They know what to do exactly.
Thank you. I'll now request the speakers to kindly respond, but take not more than a minute or two, whatever.
So
So I'll respond to the queries which were raised pertaining to me. So one was regarding the existence of multiple guidelines which are not always in harmony with one another. So ideally, yes, the guidelines should be integrated, but the development process requires different bodies who do it. So synchronization in terms of time is often a problem, and because each guideline tries to bring in the latest knowledge, so there is always this issue that on the same topic there is an older guideline which is not synchronized. This causes problems, but I think this would be inevitable when you are having multiple bodies vested with doing something. And there are reasons why having multiple bodies doing their own things is preferable than a single centralized body. Also, the issue was raised that when there is a legal requirement to do regular safety, so let's say annual factory safety, can there be guidelines? I think the Bureau of Indian Standards is considering, at least for the case of certain kinds of loads, on having norms on how to do the evaluation. Then there was a query raised regarding how to have better implementation of the norms and rules which are already in place. So these are some of the current weaknesses which I also talked about in the techno-legal regime, that we are very process-based and we are not outcome-based, and that requires a paradigm shift actually. It's not something that you can tinker in the current system and suddenly have better compliance. It requires a whole-scale change in the whole approach of the techno-legal regime. And also how to regulate professionals. Some positive steps have already been taken. The local bodies have been empowered to have their own registration, and through that process some monitoring of the professionals. A much more wholesale and holistic monitoring activity will happen once the engineers bill is passed. But at least even right now the local bodies have some say on how to do it. Thank you.
One observation relates to state of Bihar and me, that is stampede and boat capsizing. In fact, stampede and boat capsizing are the going to prove very major disasters for Bihar. Boat capsizing is not new in Bihar, but what we did, in 2012, the ferry rules were amended and it was made mandatory that all country boats have to be registered. But of course, enforcement is a problem. But now SDMA is working on an action plan together with the Transport Department, which is the nodal department, and the Disaster Management Department. And we are going to ensure that, and because Chief Minister is very much seized of the problem, the incident which you talked about, and the senior officers were transferred and some were put under suspension, because that was basically their negligence, so to say, because the meeting which was convened by the Honorable Chief Minister, I also attended that. And it was decided that it is, because we got a SOP also, and we are working on the action plan. Stampede is concerned, in 2013, there was a major event in Patna during Chhath, where, around 18 people died. But after that, there is a coordination and awareness generation starts much before the Chhath, occurrence of the Chhath festival, and coordination with SDMA, DMD, district administration, police and health department, and CSOs, of course, because there are a lot of puja samitis who organize, this Chhath festivity. So there is a perfect coordination now. In 2016, we in fact briefed all the police officers and the district administration people, magistrates and all. But another problem occurred. The drowning started taking place in the Patna and other districts where river Ganges flows. We had made arrangements of NDRF and also SDRF. Now we got one battalion of SDRF. But those ghats which remained unguarded, around 47 children died. And now we are working, because drowning is again another problem in Bihar. We got a lot of rivers there. So we are working on checking the drowning, action plan to prevent the drowning. And I'm happy to share with all of you that Bangladesh started what is known as Safe Swim program, and we learned from Bangladesh, and we are going to start Safe Swim program for the children, because 40% deaths of the children in Bangladesh was caused by drowning. And Bihar also, we had a lot of studies. We got conducted studies using our own manpower, and we found that mostly children are dying because of drowning. So we are also going to work on that. I mean, the work has been started. And I hope this coordination would certainly prevent occurrence of these events. Thank you.
Thank you, Sushma ji.
To respond to your question on indigenous knowledge systems, yes, there are there are legislative frameworks which can help this. For instance, the entire biodiversity registers under the Biodiversity Act is already there. The question is of documenting it, of upgrading and reviving it, of finding market mechanisms, and not to leave this as some small romantic exercise of documenting indigenous systems. And the fourth is to create a policy environment for it to mainstream. There have been good examples of this. I think, for instance, in Gujarat itself, more recently, and in fact, the government of India has very recently, the Ministry of Rural Development has ensured that traditional building technologies can be brought into the Prime Minister Awas Yojana, and a lot of research and assessments have been going on at the moment. Recently, the Gujarat government has taken a decision to start documenting all the traditional seeds in conjunction with civil society organizations. So this is one area where civil society organizations, the government and academia need to come in together. The frameworks are there, but this is a process that has not got enough attention. For it to be able to get into market mechanisms, the state has to, there have been some examples, but largely, why will somebody leave their traditional millets and go into, let's say, soya? That's because soya is subsidized and millets are not. So the moment you start subsidizing the indigenous knowledge systems and the markets for that, and making the market, the cash crops, for instance, more expensive, it will shift. But actually the reverse is happening. So these are policy areas which actually under DRR can be looked at far more strongly.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'll just say one thing, this question raised by, I think, Tripura of 10% of flexi funds, it could be up to 25%. Our financial advisor of NDMA is here. I don't know if you have latest instructions. Please take a copy of the instructions, and if there is anything, you can discuss. There are guidelines. So with this, I'd like to compliment and thank the eminent panelist. I know the constraints in which they gave presentation is such a wide and important area. Requesting them to confine within 10 to 12 minutes is very, very difficult. I'm also, I feel sorry that I've not been able to give time to many of you who wanted to raise questions, but you will get time maybe after this or tomorrow during tea time. You know the panelists, you can ask questions from them, but we have some limitation of time with this. I would like to thank all the panelists. I'd like to thank all of you to be here up to this and to actually participate with this. Thank you very much. I declare this as closed.
Thank you. Thank you, Shri R.K. Jain. Dr. Amir Ali Khan, NIDM से मैं गुजारिश करती हूँ कि मंच पर विराजित सभी अतिथियों को मेमेंटो प्रदान करें. सबसे पहले श्री R.K. जैन को. श्री V.K. Pipersenia. Dr. Vyasji. Ms. Sushmar Iyengar. Professor Ravi Sinha. आपदाओं से निपटने की हमारी आज की ये मुहिम विभिन्न विशेषज्ञों के विचारों, आपसे हुए इंटरैक्शन, चर्चाओं से निश्चित ही बहुत लाभकारी और उपयोगी रही. आज की ये मीटिंग अब यही संपन्न होती है. We shall begin tomorrow's proceedings at 9:30 a.m. at this venue. Till then, have a very good evening and looking forward to see you all tomorrow. Namaskar. Dhanyavad.
Thank you, Sushma ji, but I'm sorry.